let's get started with. We've got a really special panel today, starting with a very special guest who many of you may know from the current anthem of the world champion New York Knicks theme song, Empire State of Mind, written by this young lady right here to my left. This is Angela Hunt. We also have a marketing whiz, a pro. We need to have a couple of pros on the stage with the rock stars. And he is the president of APR. This is Pat Lafferty. And of course, named after a very famous rock star, we've got the regional chief creative officer of MNC Saatchi. This is Stevie Archer. Oh no, just go ahead. Just be late and then walk through the set. That's cool. All good. Okay, so let's start with one for all three of us. Okay, well, four, but you guys are going to answer. Portrait Media Group, we specialize and we put a focus on finding and speaking to and knowing how to communicate with Gen Next, which we identify as millennial downward, right? Gen Z, Gen Alpha. So what does it mean to reach Gen Next, and how is that different from the traditional general market? Like, what are the ways and means that you're using to make the associations of the different markets, and how do you talk to them? Let's start with Stevie.
Thank you. And I have zero musical talent, just to be very, very clear. Generation Next, I think the thing that's the most defining about them is how they consume culture and information and media. We've fully sort of moved away from the models of just being fully interrupted, which folks like millennials and above, that's what we grew up with. Like, we knew what it was like to experience like interruptive advertising and you couldn't escape it. And now Gen Z can choose how they want to consume and who they want to consume information from. And a huge part of it is also that they've grown up in an algorithmic world where everything is designed for them, for the community they're a part of, for the culture they want to engage in, and they can choose and be defined by all of that. So it's much less of talking to any one group within Gen Z or Gen Alpha and talking to many, many, many micro communities. And that's a really difficult thing to do.
I think in speaking to those different micro communities, it's understanding that culture comes from those micro communities. Anything that's meaningful and resonant with folks comes from these various different communities. And it can be incredibly compelling to a wide group of folks, but it has to start from something culturally true in those micro communities.
Can you hear me? So, I have to talk to them all the time. I have to write for these kids. And I think they're definitely underrated with how we feed them information. They're so knowledgeable. I'm surrounded by them in my house. So therefore, I'm always like, you're doing that millennial thing again. What is that acronym again or whatever? And I think it's important to understand that they are the next generation of doers and thinkers. And I think people right now are just so like, they're just non-informative. They don't understand. They didn't do the MySpace. They didn't do the, they didn't have to dial up. And so they kind of get passed over. But as we're seeing now, we have to talk to them a certain way. Even when I write for them, I have to write a certain way. In the beginning, it was thought, dumb down the music. And it's like, no, this is the generation of, we want to know what that is again. No one could have ever told me in 2009 that here we are 15 years later, and Empire State of Mind is back again. It's number one on almost every chart. That's the power of them.
That's the power of royalties.
You want to do this?
The whole man. No, you're stuck with me. You stuck with me. I'm going to try to just, get the right angle here so we can come back on the feedback. So Patrick, let's talk about the strategies then. Like, tactically, what are you doing and what are you telling brands to do in order to speak to a more, I don't think it was ever a monolith, but to speak to a more micro fragmented group? What are the tactics you're doing and advising the clients?
Yeah, I think it's critical that they are going into the different, subcultures, whether that be in sport, whether that be in music, whether that be in fashion, and that they come from that authentic place, and be a part of that community and represent that community in ways that are compelling. And it's about getting that content out in a variety of ways, being in the right moment, in the right time, with the right message to the right people.
And how about you, Stevie? I know that you guys are a great agency with a lot of clients, a lot of history. Talk about the shift in the marketing approach now, and how you are telling your clients to measure success.
Well, I think a huge part of it is starting to view brands as, again, not just a single campaign, but as a mosaic of how you show up in all of the different ways and places that you're speaking. So you still very well may have some unifying emotional value that your brand is bringing to the table that holds everything together, but then it has to be expressed in one community versus another community to the fan groups or the people who are helping create those communities through the lens that they're used to experiencing it from. And then I think a lot of it is, I actually learned this word from the chief creative officer at Elf Beauty. She calls it constellationing, where you start to then find crossover. So you find the people who are into the Knicks, who are also into World Cup, like our friend Spike, who suddenly now those communities are coming together and you can speak to them in a different way and you find things in common that you can unite those cultures with. And that's how you get scale, is by connecting people that way.
And you're going to close the show with a Stevie Nicks cover? Everybody? No? Okay. All right. Listen, let's talk about TikTok. How do you use it? How do you interact with the friends? Are you creating content specifically for the platform, or or the artists that you work with? Do you have a specific strategy for TikTok? Tell us how influential that's been.
I think I'm a great person to look at, to a person who did. Just not gonna get a break today. It's okay. We're coming off of a home stretch here. I've fought social media for a very long time, believe it or not, because I was like, Michael Jackson didn't have social media. Why do I need social media? I don't need it. And my little sister was like, you need to get on TikTok because they want to hear your voice. They want to see you. They want to hear the studio experience. And I was like, nobody wants to know what we're doing in the studio. This is honestly how I was looking at it. And I made just recently, so this just started for me because I'm a very private person. I don't really like to talk about my experiences in the studio because I don't know how they come about. It's a gift. It just happens, right? So how do you talk about that? And why do people want to hear that? Well, people this generation, they love the more experience. What do you do in your kitchen? What seasonings do you use? It's so crazy, the things that they want to know. And so she goes, trust me, just test it out. And I was like, fine, okay. And I spoke about Empire State of Mind, and I felt so awkward. I was like, this is crazy. No one wants to know. And I said, well, okay, if anybody wants to know, I wrote the song when I was in London. Boom. It was like 261,000 and it was mind boggling to me. Yeah. Were you homesick? I was homesick and I wanted to be shoved. I wanted a hot dog. I wanted to go home. I wanted anything to do but to go home. And the Jenners ate that up because they want to know. They want to prove people wrong. They want to say, no. This is the information. So the information is very important. So TikTok, I really didn't understand the power until I started using it. And I was like, wow, this is a very powerful place. And then just even like personally, like shopping on TikTok, I was like, now I understand when it went down, why everyone was like, oh my God, the world's ending. Like, what am I going to do? I literally go on TikTok as a person of age and buy everything because they actually genuinely talk to you, go, listen, hey, I'm going to cut to the chase. I like this. This is what I like. You're going to like it too. Buy it. I'm telling you. That's what's great about it. And that's why they turn to it.
But let's talk about the impact of the importance of influence versus it used to be very much like a scale mentality. And now it's a lot about influence, who you're talking to and how they can impact decision making. So jump in on that. Yeah. Use that one, please.
Well, I mean, there's a whole cohort of folks that use TikTok as their primary search engine. That's how they find and discover things. And it's because of that influence, that trust that they have with the folks that they're hearing it. That's where they start. And oftentimes it's where they end and buy and then talk about it themselves. So, it is amazing to me on how that is now the way that people discover things. So.
Okay, let's give Stevie another one. So let's talk about the role of AI, because no one ever talks about that. So let's talk about the role that AI is playing in helping brands understand and connect with new customers. I'm sure you have a stack that you've built, some of it proprietary, some of it you use. So TikTok is at the Carlton. That's enough about TikTok. Let's talk about AI and what you're doing there.
Well, I just want to say first off, like the way that you talked about your creativity and what happens in the studio is the thing you said is a gift. It just happens. I think that's the part of the AI conversation that should be a lot more about the conversation. Is there's still those moments of like talent and magic and alchemy and whatever, wherever it comes from for you and wherever it then goes is something that AI is not great at. What AI is really great at in this kind of a conversation, in this sort of a universe, is when you're talking about tons of fan communities and microcultures and micro communities doing the listening really fast to start to like understand where is conversation happening? What are they talking about? What are they doing? It still will not replace, though, the like full fluency of being like a part of that community and speaking the language truly and really like living and breathing it in every way, which is where creators get you further. AI can help with creator identification. It can help with a lot of that part of the process, vetting a lot of the things that take tons and tons of time that used to take months and months. And those are the places right now where it's really helping. But with Gen Z, Gen Alpha, the thing to remember is that they can sniff phoniness 100 miles away. And even when humans who are being a little phony make stuff, they know it. And that is what gets rejected. So it's constantly finding the line between how to use it as a tool, but not fall into the trap. And look, I didn't say stack one time. I'm so proud of myself.
I did. You're right. What's in your stack?
I was talking to an artist yesterday, and she said that how she is using AI is to articulate in more meaningful ways what she's trying to create, and so that she can hand that off to producers and the folks that work with her. And she said this thing that lived in her head or in her heart, she had a really hard time articulating. But then with AI, she can find different ways. It isn't the answer. It isn't the actual art, but it helps facilitate get to the creation of something amazing.
And you're using AI to write all your lyrics? No? How are you using AI now?
Obviously, we can't fight it, so we have to join it. And in music, we're always late, and we're late to the party. But there was a time that if you tried to write a song like me, you couldn't do it, right? Because you can do things that I can't do, and vice versa, right? Everybody. We all have things that we do better than everything else. But now you can literally go write a song like Angela Hunt, and it's pretty darn good, right? So what I try to do is, I believe AI is great at personalization. So you can get like what the Gen Zers are doing. They're going on there and they're personalizing their life on it, and it's being a lot more like someone just said in a panel, I was just like, interview me. Let me tell you the things I want. Let me tell you the things I need. And then you kind of have this person that, can give you what you want. And it can really help you. I have one child who is, he calls it Jupiter. He hates it. And then I have one child who absolutely loves it. And through her, she was like, well, mommy, I don't think it's a bad thing. I think that you should really, maybe there's a song you might be stuck on, but because you know what to do with words, you might pull things that other people can't do. And so I started approaching AI like that. Like I would just say things and I would get things that I probably would never say, but I know how to use it. So I'm not fighting it. Do I like the fact that people are writing songs and making AI artists? No. But here we are, and all we can do is just see where they go with it and see what happens. But the human factor will never fail us. So.
And I feel like the Grammys and the Oscars, they're acknowledging that and not awarding that work, not yet. But let's talk about brands for a minute. Let's talk about some of the mistakes, without calling anyone out by name, maybe that you've seen with a brand's approach to targeting this generation, and we'll just come down the line here. Unless you want to out somebody, because there's tea in there. I'm for the tea.
Yeah, I mean, I think again, the thing that brands tend to do wrong is not having culturally fluent people as part of the creation of work, and trying to adopt what they think is sort of the generic stereotypical version of Gen Z. And like, look, I'm a millennial. We had that version of millennial stuff too, like, hey, fellow kids. Like, we all knew what it was when like all the internet brands started like trying to talk like they were very cool. And you're like, who are you? What is this? Like, what are you saying to me? I think that happens on a regular basis. There was a rule my company worked on Kamala HQ. That did not go well, unfortunately. But when they were running their campaign, they had a rule internally that they did not use a TikTok sound that had more than 2,000 listens, because that meant it was already peaking, and it was already, by the time they executed against it, going to be old news. So that's how you show up late to the party and act and look like you're like, didn't belong there. And then I think we've seen some serious missteps where brands have, aligned with creators who they didn't do enough vetting, they didn't do enough research, they didn't understand that creator's values, that like fully misaligned with where their communities were going, and saw significant backlash from it that they have had to recover from. And so I think that's where, again, having the cultural fluency, having people in the walls who know these things is really, really important.
I'm not going to out the brand, but I was a part of this, so I have to own it myself too. So working with a brand, and we were repositioning the brand and coming out with something that was a little bit, edgy and different for this brand. And we tried to convince the client that we needed to do internal marketing first, that we needed to get folks on board and help them be amplifying the message. The decision was made not to do that, so we then launched externally. And while it was very successful out in the world, it ended up dying because the internal audience didn't buy into it and wasn't there amplifying it and reinforcing it. So that's super important, to make sure that your most important influencers, the employees at your brand, that they are amplifying and building on it, not detracting from it.
And are you working with brands?
Yeah, all the time.
Okay, let's hear about maybe one brand thing that you did, maybe not a mistake, and then what's next for you.
Well, I do want to say that I think brands, I'm not naming the brand, the micro communities are very important. Every campaign can't be for everyone. So I feel like if sometimes they start dissecting their campaigns and going, this one needs this one needs this. And some brands, like when they ask me to write songs for them, or hey, could you mention, our name in this song, because we feel like, and that's okay. But it's like, not everyone might like that campaign. So
Shout out to her. Managers right there.
Is-
Everybody wants their names shouted.
we will gladly write you a song. For me personally, what I'm doing, I have kind of like left the artist space, meaning, I was responsible for making a lot of artists into stars, finding their voices, finding who they wanted to be, and finding their sound, and moved more into television and film. And my catalog is a very heavily synced catalog. So when streaming came in, Netflix, HBO, Showtime, all the streaming services, there was a lot of music. And they can't always afford, it's a lot of money to sync Empire State of Mind. Oh, yeah. And we don't always say yes to everyone, But can I write you something like that? Absolutely. So that happened with a lot of companies. It was like, hey, we can't afford Janet Jackson's song. Could you write us a song like that? So when I moved into television and film, I absolutely loved it because it's just easier for me as a mom. Artists today are a lot more difficult to deal with than back in the day, to be quite honest. And it's just a space that's really fun, and you get to like watch these shows, and you also get to watch things like Stranger Things and bring back songs that kids didn't know. And then it's just like my kids are like walking around singing Stevie Nicks, and I'm like, well, this is amazing. So, and I like the fact that they're coming going, could you write us songs like that? So I'm happy about that. So, after making a lot of shows, a lot of money, I decided to open my own company, the Hunted Group, and it's going really well. We're launching it like fully, like towards the end of this year. And I have like my own series and television shows and production. I was a director first before I was a singer. So I'm just excited to do that and move more into that space and see, what happens. And hopefully I'm able to bring a fresh face to film and television with some new ideas. That's what I got going on.
Amazing, and that's a perfect way to wrap it up. First thing I want to say is concrete jungle where dreams are made of. I'll have to pay for that. There's nothing we can't do. None of you. Thank you, Angela, Pat, Stevie. Thank you for this wonderful panel. Up next is my boss, Bon and Bao, the head of the show, with the next conversation. Please don't go anywhere.